Welcome in, everybody. It's a new week. It's week one of CFB season. You're tuning into the Bleacher Brothers Sports Network. Robbie Lastella here alongside my co-host Christian Proscia, and we're joined tonight by a special guest, Stephen Brooks of MSU 247. Stephen, how's it going?
Doing well, guys. I'm sure it's probably the same feeling that you're all having. I like just that you can feel the excitement. You can feel football season really coming. So, I'm just ready to get after it.
I hear you, man. It's been a long summer. Both you guys had the full blown coaching staff change, so that must have been a whole boatload of coverage going on with that. We just had about a half a roster flip down here, so everything that goes on with that definitely changed things a little bit. But the coaching staff completely new up there at MSU. It's probably a whole new regime. How's that been so far? The transition from Tucker to Smith for you, just in terms of dealing with media and stuff like that.
Yeah, I think you're starting to feel the shift of the culture. That obviously wasn't going to be something that happened overnight. Um, I was still covering the program when Mark D'Antonio was here his last couple of years, and when that changeover from D'Antonio to Tucker happened, I described it as like going from the feel of like a family run, like sort of corner store, almost some sort of family business, that type of environment, to like Wall Street, Fortune 500 type of environment with Tucker. And I think you can extrapolate that a lot of different ways. Of course, I think now they're shifting a little bit back to some of that. I mean, Jonathan Smith's put a huge premium on like connectedness, chemistry. I mean, it's basic fundamental stuff, but like he felt the need to really hammer these things, like just knowing your teammates, knowing where they're all from, intermingling different parts of the roster, that type of stuff. He really feels like one of his first goals has to be like building that sense of team first. And why wouldn't you, right? He's got 60 something new players. I think it's 62, 61 maybe from the 2023 roster to the 2024 roster. Now, of course, some of those guys were here in spring, some just got here in the summer. But regardless, he's basically got a brand new roster as well. So that's one of the main differences. And I think in other ways, you get some vibes about him and this staff as well that are similar to like the Mark Antonio era, just in terms of like they're really like. So one example is they keep mentioning how often there's little kids running around the office, right? Like the staff is encouraged to bring their families around. It's he's not Smith's not a guy that wants to see all the coaches in the office, till 1, 2, 3 a.m. every night. Like work life balance, that stuff's important. Doing things, being more than a football coach, and I think that trickles down to their relationship with the roster and the players, and the feeling that the players have being a part of the program. So those are a couple angles, I guess, where things are starting to feel different. And of course, the next 4 months are going to really reveal a whole lot more differences.
Yeah, I mean, the culture you mentioned, that's kind of what we've seen down here with FAU as well. Last year was a lot of the last regime's guys, and so this year has been, or this offseason was kind of about getting in Herman's guys in here, and what you've talked about, seeing that sense of buy-in and culture shift. It's really kind of started to shift down here as well from our perspective. Christian, I don't know if you that when he was talking, it kind of just sounded like Herman with everything that goes on with trying to connect everything, which I think is very important and a way to start to build the program. But in terms of off-season additions, how did that go for MSU? Obviously, they probably had some departures, but was Jonathan Smith able to bring in a decent amount, whether it was high school or portal?
Yeah, I don't have the full numbers here in front of me. I can try and pull them up as I'm talking a little bit, but
Yeah,
yeah,
no
huge turnover. Like I mentioned, so we have him at 24/7 with 24 incoming transfers and 38 outgoing. Now that's you get some walk-ons in there and you get some guys that you miss. So I don't think those are dead on the number accurate, but it gives you a good idea. And as I said, 61, 62 something type of new players when you include the freshmen as well. So yeah, a whole bunch of new names. It's been the hardest spring and summer camps that I've ever covered because like normally it's like, okay, I got to learn 15, 20 new numbers or something. Now it was the whole, I had the roster with me the whole time. I'm like, okay. And then guys change numbers like, oh, who's number 3 now? I've never had that type of trouble at the practice field, just trying to understand who I'm looking at, right? That's the amount of turnover we dealt with here. So at the top, 3 guys follow him over from Oregon State. They will be starting. That's Aiden Childs, the quarterback, and he's got the most buzz about him. 24/7 ranked him as the number two available transfer quarterback. Was a four-star kid coming out of high school. Was one of the biggest recruits that they signed out at Oregon State in the program's history. And obviously has a great deal of faith in Jonathan Smith and Brian Lindgren, the offensive coordinator, the quarterback's coach who followed him here. And he was good enough where they had DJU last year, a veteran guy that was their starter, but Childs still played in 9 games, and they pre-scripted a series at least about almost every game for him. So as a 17-year-old true freshman, I guess he turned 18 in the middle of the season, but they thought he was good enough that like we got to throw him into the fire and get him some reps here. And now he comes in here, he's an unquestioned starter. Tanner Miller, the center, is the other one. He's going to be starting. He's an All Pac-12 guard for him at Oregon State. And Jack Velling was a second-team All Pac-12, I believe, tight end. Led them in touchdown catches with 8 last year. He'll definitely be their starting tight end. So you've got a little bit of a core offensively there via the transfer portal. And then, I got, 100 names here. Like I said, we could list off. But then the other big thing to note, though, is defensive tackle. They lost 2 of their 2 starters in the April window. So Simeon Barrow goes to Miami, and Derek Harmon goes to Oregon. And those were 2 guys that I think have NFL ability. I think have all conference, all Big Ten, were they still around type of ability. So those were the biggest losses by far, personnel wise. Not one, but both your starting D tackles. So that's a bit of an area of unknown, I guess we'll call it now. I can't say it's a weakness yet, but those were 2 of their 10 best players at least, maybe 2 of their 5 best players that walked out the door.
Yeah, I mean, we heard Jonathan Smith in his press conference today. He talked about having 5 guys rotate there in the interior. So it kind of sounds like he's confident in the depth that he's brought in if he can play 5 guys, especially in the trenches. That's something that Tom Herman believes in. He's brought. I don't know if it's 5, but there's definitely at least 3 or 4 guys that he can rotate in the interior. So that's that part of the transfer portal where you're able to bring in a lot of talent. You may not know who's going to be that guy right away, especially if they're all kind of standing out a little bit. But you talked about Childs and everything that he brings to the table, and that he played in a couple of games last year. And he was named a captain, which I think is really important. Is there kind of a sense around East Lansing that he could be that future guy, that long-term 4-year face of East Lansing?
Absolutely. I mean, he was the big, people were excited when they hired Jonathan Smith. I don't think he was like a super well-known name unless you're like a real, junkie, like I assume you guys are,
Yeah.
or like, in terms of being deep in the weeds of college football. But he had done some good things and built a good program out there. And I think once people got familiar with him, there was excitement. But really, Aiden Childs coming over was like the wave of the offseason. I mean, you look at a guy that's played in 9 games already, but has 3 years of eligibility left. He's got the prototype frame at like 6'4". He's a true dual threat. He can move around, very much in that modern mold of what you want at the quarterback position. And he's going to be already in year 2 in this offense when you're in year 1 in this program trying to get things going. So yeah, I think he has star potential. He is 18 right now. He'll turn 18, I think, or 19. I'm sorry, next month. But we're still talking about a young kid who's never started a game. And so with that can obviously come some mistakes and some errors and things like that. But I think he's got the potential to be one of the top 3 quarterbacks in the Big Ten this year. And then but that's a scenario where I would say where like Michigan State's hitting its ceiling and like everything is going right. There's development around him on the offense, and he's leading the ship there. But I'm a big believer in his ability. I think it's just about how soon he's really going to be able to be consistent, put it all together. But I'm betting that sooner than later. I think he's going to be a big time name probably within college football, at least by next year and maybe by the end of this year.
Yeah, it seems like he has like a path to success there with the people coming over with him, especially Jack Velling. And so probably my only question with that would be in terms of the wide receiver position. You have Montori Foster Jr. back, but outside of that, is it kind of like a bit of a toss up as to who's going to step up as the 2? Is there a chance? I saw Marsh highly rated. He saw some of his film. He looks really athletic. Is there a chance he potentially sees the field early this year?
Yeah, receiver. And so like when just to reverse just a tiny bit, like I think like if they're going to hit their ceiling, if they're going to be this team that's maybe better than a lot of us think, I think it's because Aiden Childs is able to lift the supporting cast. I think the receiver group's just okay. And maybe I'll be proven wrong, but I think they're just okay. I don't think they're bad necessarily. I don't think there's a star yet in that room. You mentioned Nick Marsh is a 4-star freshman. You're definitely going to see him Friday night, maybe even snap one. He's really, really coming along quickly, and he's just a different guy. He's like 6'3", can run. He's just a different build, a different sort of specimen that they have in that room. I don't know, so I think he can be a star one day as a go-to featured guy, but right now I don't know if they have a receiver that can carry the passing game necessarily. I think it'll probably be a by committee thing. I mean, Montorie Foster's an experienced guy, but he's been around for a while. He's never really stepped forward to demand that number one role. He kind of is that by default now. And we'll see how that goes. I'm a big believer in Brian Lindgren, their offensive coordinator. I think he does a really good job of putting players in positions to succeed. As elementary as that sounds, people that have watched Michigan State, especially offensively, the last couple of years, will know that that's not a given apparently all the time. So I think the play calling and the sequencing and just the differences. I mean, they run some stuff that not a lot of people run in college football anymore. So I think that is going to lift that room to maybe better than they appear to be talent wise. But that's kind of the outlook. I don't think they'll have 1,000-yard guy. I'd be surprised by that. I could see like 3 or 4 guys all kind of similar in numbers by the end of the year, and that would be like Montorie Foster. Nick Marsh would be in there. Jerron Glover is going to be their other starter, a kid from the Sarasota area, I believe, down there. Riverview High School, I think it was.
Mm-hmm.
And then Jack Velling, of course, will get in there. They'll get some tight end targets, of course. But, yeah, I think receiver, when you look at the offense as a whole, is one of the bigger unknowns, maybe one of the bigger weaknesses. And, yeah, that's kind of where that's at. The biggest one would be the offensive line. I don't know how much you guys want me to touch on that, but that's the biggest question mark with that side of the ball for sure.
Well, I mean, yeah, I don't know. I did a little bit of research. It's kind of tough with offensive line because you never know who's the guy. Sometimes they bring in a guy from a lower level school, but that doesn't necessarily mean like he's not going to be able to contribute. So, I mean, offensive line, it's important for Aiden Childs in this year, and especially in this first game because, he's a mobile guy. They're going to need to kind of hold up on the outside. If not, the FAU might blitz a little bit. So is the offensive line something that's really a big concern? Is he going to be having to run around a lot?
I don't know about run around a lot because they lost. Well, first of all, they lost 4 starters from last year, and they could not run the ball. It was one of the program's worst rushing seasons. I mean, they were averaging under 100 yards a game. It was one of the worst rushing seasons ever. Like seriously, in like maybe 40, 50 years or something. I'd have to look that up, but it was bad. They could actually pass protect decently, but again, a lot of that personnel is turned over. Just as a program, the offensive line has been a problem here for a long time, and it's what's kept them from doing some better things on especially offensively. They've had some decently talented teams and some good skill guys going back to like 2018. Really is when the decline happened. They have the 10-win year in 2021 with Kenneth Walker, and he was able to mask some things, and they did have some decent talent, but for the better part of like 6 seasons, the offensive line has been a major concern. And now you're starting a whole bunch of new guys here. They brought up Luke Newman as a transfer from Holy Cross. So at the FCS level, he was an All-American, but you're making a big jump now to the Big Ten. But he'll probably start at guard for him. Tanner Miller, like I said, comes over from Oregon State as the center. Christian Phillips looks like to be the right guard. He's a returning guy, was a Mel Tucker recruit, and the same thing with Ashton Lepo. So 2 first-time starters basically on the right side. An FCS guy that you're hoping pans out. We've heard good things about Newman, so and that's what that's looking like. But it's been a weakness long enough that you kind of just assume it will be until you see it's fixed because different players, different coordinators, different coaches have all come in, and it's been this weakness, for the program for a while. So I think that's the thing. Like when I talked about if Childs is the dude day one, then they can exceed expectations. If the offensive line is not where it needs to be, then that's when we start talking about like worst case scenarios and being right around the floor of what this team can be this year.
Yeah, and you mentioned Kenneth Walker, and you think about Le'Veon Bell and the rushing culture that goes into it. I mean, Nate Carter had a pretty decent year last year, nothing crazy, but they bring in they bring back Carter, and then they also bring in Lynch Adams, I think it was from UMass. And he had a big year last year at UMass, so I think that in itself says something to me, especially running the ball. I've never heard of UMass having a big rush game, so that's kind of that sneaker name to me, where I was looking at the potential options, and that's like a guy who could contribute in the pass game, could get some snaps at running back. And what's going on in the running back room? Is it potentially his job to steal from Carter?
No, no, I don't know. No, they love Nate Carter. That's like the one constant thing that we've heard since January with anybody basically in the program. They love Nate Carter, and he was just named a captain too. And I think he's underrated within the scope of the Big Ten. Like you said, I mean, for him to, as somebody who watched every game last year, for him to churn out 800 yards behind the line he was playing behind was no small feat. So I think having a sidekick though, like Ron Lynch Adams, is going to help him because we saw, Carter was banged up a little bit last year. He played through some things, plays hard, gives it all. He's not going to be a guy that wants to come off the field, but I do think he's better when you can keep him around like 20 carries and give, 10 to the next guy and keep him fresh. But they love him. They love how he can fit into this scheme and the wide zone stuff that they like to do and all the bootlegs and play action off of that. I mean, that's so critical. Like I'm saying, the offensive line, if they can't get some traction in the run game, really philosophically, everything they want to do starts to crumble. So it's going to be very, very important that unit gets put together. And quite honestly, you read between the lines some comment. We talked to the coordinator, Brian Lindgren, today on offense, and he's like, yeah, it's a work in progress. And it's like, ooh, you don't really love hearing that in game week for week one. But I tip my cap. I respect the honesty. It's much more transparent than we've been used to around here. But I think that's a real question. And when you mentioned just real quick, like Aiden Childs, it's going to be a different world for him, I think, behind this line because the guys that he was playing with at Oregon State, he had 4 first or second team all Pac-12 offensive linemen in front of him last year. So I don't think it's going to be that way this year. One of them was Tanner Miller, the center that comes over, but 4 of those dudes up front were all conference last year, helping him out, helping him get his feet wet. And so things are going to be different for real this year.
So I'm looking at your guys' transfer portal class right now. Damn, y'all brought in 5 quarterbacks?
Two are true freshmen, one's a transfer, and one is Childs. So it should be 4.
Well, because I'm seeing Childs, Levitt, Schuster, Hauser, and Kim.
Hauser left, right?
Okay.
Yeah.
Hauser left, Kim left, and Levitt left.
Okay, so it's just Childs and Schuster?
Yeah, so right after the season, all 3 scholarship quarterbacks left. When Smith was hired, I believe he had 0. Well, within about a week or so, he literally had 0 scholarship quarterbacks. He was able to go get 2 in that first freshman class. So 2 true freshmen that they were able to get sort of late in the cycle. Childs, of course, comes over. And then Tommy Schuster is a kid they got from the portal. FCS player, 6th-year guy, like the textbook backup. He's a kid from Michigan, wanted to come home, was a record setter at North Dakota. Not North Dakota State, regular North Dakota, but played a bunch of games there, set a bunch of records for him. And now he's going to come home and be the backup to, the guy with all the hype. So they have a great deal of trust in him. I think it's one of their sneaky underrated transfer pickups this year was Tommy Schuster.
So now you spoke a little bit about Coach Smith and his previous stop at Oregon State being able to bring a couple guys over. Being in the media, how do you feel about just him bringing over guys that he trusts? In the words of Dion from last year, bringing over his Louis baggage. What is that like building the hype around this team?
Yeah, it's interesting. I mean, he did leave a couple bags behind. I won't, because like Damian Martinez was at Miami, was with him. You would have loved to get him. Yeah, if you're Michigan State, I think you would have loved to have him. Sure. And so the Bolden, the receiver who ended up at Texas, would have loved to have him. I think there's a corner who went to USC, I think. So there was more out there, but I just think I don't really have an opinion on it. I just think it's a reality of the era, So it's like, what type of coach can I get? What can he do for me over 5 years? But also, who can he bring with him today? I mean, they're in drastic. We just talked about the quarterback room. If they didn't have Aiden Childs here, I mean, the outlook would be gloomy, and it's not great already. I mean, they were picked 16th out of 18 in the Big Ten. The Vegas win totals are like 4.5 to 5.5, which obviously tells you they think they're going to win, 4 or 5 or 6 games. They were hardly on any of the watch lists, which I know is not a great indicator. But when you put it all together, there's just the opinions are pretty low as is. If they didn't have Aiden Childs, and as I mentioned, Velling and Miller are going to be sort of pillars of the offense too, they'd be in much worse shape. So I just think it's part of the era. And like I said, when you're hiring a coach now, it's all you have to look at these things like who else can he come with? Not just, oh, is he going to get the, normally the question is, can he bring the coordinator? Can he bring this key recruiter on staff? Can you bring all these guys? Now it's like, what's that running back doing over there? Is he going to come too? Can I get the quarterback as well? So I just think it's, like I said, a reflection of where we are right now.
And then I'm looking at the linebacker core a little. Y'all poached a guy from Michigan. That's with Bridgman. Being able to snag a guy who has experience at the highest level, obviously winning a national championship, having him kind of have like a defensive like perspective. What is that like?
Yeah, well, they're really interesting. So they did a swap basically, but Michigan definitely got the better end of it. Starting MSU, one of their starting safeties, a kid named Jaden Mangum, transferred to Michigan in the spring, and that was like the ground shook, around here. Like you just don't do that. And so it was a big kerfuffle on Twitter. You had former players speaking out and disavowing this kid and everything. You had his brother jumping in to fight him back. It was a whole deal. But he's a starter, and he would have been a second-year starter here. I think he's got like all-league potential. And they got Bridgman on the back end, who I think is promising, but a guy that hasn't played much. I don't know if he actually got on the field. If he did, it wasn't much. So in terms of a player-for-player swap, MSU lost that one. But it is weird. It's very weird, and it's just one of the many reasons I think that if we keep going down this path, then it's good to see you guys. I think you guys look fairly young. Like I worry about the younger generations loving the sport the way me and others did, like with how weird this all is when there's no loyalty, when you can cross sides, when money rules everything. And now we're going into a whole new podcast, I understand. But to the point, they did restack their linebacker room a lot. That's the best unit, definitely on the defense, maybe on the team. Bridgman, I don't think factors in, though. But the two transfers of note are Jordan Turner from Wisconsin, who was named a captain. He's just your classic Big Ten downhill linebacker. I mean, might as well have the neck roll and all that stuff, like 250 pounds basically coming at you in the A-gap. Like that's the Big Ten linebacker. That's Jordan Turner. And then the other one is Wayne Matthews, who's kind of the opposite from Old Dominion. I think he was a top 10 tackler in the country last year, and he's like the 2024 linebacker. Jordan Turner's the 80s linebacker. Wayne Matthews is like the 2024 in the sense that like he probably would have been a safety 20 years ago. Plays pass coverage very well, one of the highest graded pass coverage backers, I think, in the portal. Just moves well in space, will allow them to sort of shift between their base and a nickel look because he can go play in space and go cover guys. So those are the two additions. Then the returners, Cal Halliday and Jordan Hall, really complete their top four, and those guys are all going to rotate in there and play a lot.
And then
I just wanted to say, I mean, I was in there asking Tom Herman a couple of days ago about the kicking position, so that's probably all I need to know to tell you. I love college football. I got to get to the bottom of everything, even if it's the kicker position. Chris, you had something else?
Basically, I wanted to touch a little bit more on Wayne Matthews. Him coming from Old Dominion, obviously, Old Dominion isn't the hottest football hotbed in the country. No shade to the Monarchs, but being able to have a guy really stand out like that and him be like the one shining light on a defense full of ducks. But having him come into this program and really be a quote franchise cornerstone, what are you guys expecting him in a very talented Big Ten with a very talented Big Ten backfield across the board?
Yeah, I thought he would be a lock to start. As we get closer to game one, I'm not so sure he will, but I do expect to play a lot. He's definitely a guy that gives you a lot on special teams. But like I said, he's different. So this linebacker room, they've got a lot of experience, and they're all kind of different. It's like you got a different tool for every situation. And like I said with Matthews, he's that hybrid guy to where he can play their sand spot out in space where he's basically going to be like a slot corner, He's going to be on your slot receiver or a tight end who split out or something. And they'll feel comfortable doing that with him. I think that's the value with him is like you can play for your regular 4-3 and be heavy in the box with him, but also you don't have to substitute if they were to shift or get somebody in there on you quick and they were to spread you out and go 3 or 4 wide or whatever. I think you can get by with him, and it's not a massive liability if he has to split out into space and cover somebody. And that was one of the soft spots of this defense the last few years. those intermediate routes, 10 to 15 yards. Their linebackers just getting thrown over the top of their heads all the time. I don't think they had a lot of guys that were supernatural at it, like athletically, and Matthews has demonstrated that he can do that. So I think that's the value with him.
We lost Christian, but no, I saw Wayne Matthews in he put up big numbers at Old Dominion, so that definitely could be a contributor. But in terms of the defense overall, in game one, what are you kind of looking for to kind of see out of the defense in terms of improvement? With FAU, pass rush is something that we want to see. I mean, they didn't really have much production with that, so is it pass rush? Is it better coverage with the DB unit? What are you guys, or I mean, what do you think the staff is kind of looking for in that first game from the defense?
I think, first of all, the basic stuff like clean, clear communication, no penalties, all that. Of course, the regular stuff, just get that get that off the board early. But yeah, I would say the interior D line for me, because as I said, those two guys that they lost in the portal, the two tackles were some of their better players, and so I like the guys that they had sort of as backups. I don't know how much I'm going to like them as starters, and then even behind them, guys 3, 4, 5, you hope to get to 6 at that rotation. I don't think, with all due respect, I don't know how much of a great gauge FAU will be with their O line, like in terms of deciding whether MSU is going to be okay year long at that point. But like I always say in these type of games, you can't really prove that you're good, but you can prove that you might have a big red flag on your hands. So if they were getting blown up through the middle of the line of scrimmage, that would be an issue. The other place would be in the back end. You just want to see something that makes sense, like some competent coverage, some receivers not running wide open, chunk plays, held to a minimum, because they were in the 2021 season with Kenneth Walker, we talked about, they were dead last nationally in passing yards allowed per game. The next year, they were dead last in interceptions with 2, and 1 was from a linebacker. So even though Mel Tucker was a DB's guy under Nick Saban for a lot of his career, the defensive backfield never came together here. And so they've added some transfers there as well at the corner position, brought some guys back, I think, that are promising there, and safety as well. The returners are sort of a good core of talent there. So I think you just want to see in this new defense with Joe Rossi from Minnesota, something that looks like it makes sense, like they're all on the same page on the back end, that there's not 2 or 3 major busts, and guys are just running wide open, because it's just been really, really easy to throw the ball on Michigan State for 4 years now.
Yeah, that I smiled when you mentioned Mel Tucker was a DB's coach, because that's what was the most surprising thing to me about Michigan State being bad over the past couple of years was it was supposed to be a defensive first thing, and it didn't work out at times. So it's definitely something that I'm going to watch out for too, to kind of see if that old kind of defensive culture is kind of reinstated, which you mentioned at the beginning is the case. But looking at the offensive side of the ball, winding down here. How unleashed do you think they'll let Aiden Childs be in game one? Are we going to see the full version of him running outside of the pocket, throwing on the run, option plays, everything that goes into the dual threat side of things, or is it maybe a little bit reserved in game one?
I think with him, you'll see glimpses of just about everything, just because I do think, he's going to run into trouble a couple of times where the pocket's just not there. I do think he's going to pull the ball a couple of times on some reads and RPOs and stuff. So I think you'll get a good sense of the full Aiden Childs experience. But in terms of the offense, I do expect it to be pretty vanilla. I mean, look, they're going into a Big Ten game next week, which is not normal, for the cadence of a season and how you build up to things. So I do expect them to try to be as vanilla as possible, while still, of course, trying to win the game, and not put themselves, into a sweaty fourth quarter or anything. But yeah, I do think that there will be an effort on both sides to try to be as basic as possible, for a variety of reasons. I mean, these are brand new systems on both sides. They got the helmet thing going on now for the first time, new staff, new operations, it's all new. So just because of that, I think things would be pared down. But also, yeah, you're looking at a Big Ten game next week on the road. Not that they're looking down this far, but Ohio State at the end of the month, things like that. So I do think if they can, they'll try to stay fairly basic in the schemes and concepts that they show.
Well, Stephen, thank you. We've gone overtime, and I really appreciate We went in depth. I love it. We were talking about the offensive line. We didn't get to special teams, but we'll have to get to that another time. But I appreciate it a lot. I think we talked about a ton of good info, and I think the people are prepped on Michigan State now. So I really appreciate it, and I look forward to seeing you on Friday.
Good deal. Yeah, thanks for having me on, guys. Hopefully somebody learned a little bit. Hopefully I didn't ramble too much. Special teams, their specialists are good. Real quick, punter is one of the better ones in the Big Ten. Kicker has a huge leg, little inconsistent, but massive power on his leg.
There you go. I mean, FAU's got a four-way kicker competition. I don't know if it's decided yet. I'm Tom Herman. I might have to call him up tomorrow. We'll see. But Stephen Brooks of 247, everybody, thank you so much. We're going to take a quick break here on the Bleacher Brothers Sports Network. When we come back, me and Christian are going to talk UMUF, the state battle. We'll be right back. Welcome back, everybody. Just after 8:30 here on the Bleacher Brothers Sports Network. If you missed our FAU Michigan State recap, make sure to hit that rewind button here after we post this after the fact. Stephen Brooks of Spartan 247 was amazing. Ton of great info diving into the Spartans FAU MSU on Friday. On Saturday, though, the big matchup. Christian's got his Canes. I'm taking the Gators in that matchup. Nothing going on. Just a little bit of a friendly, a rivalry affair. We're both celebrating the loss for FSU. No, just kidding. That was a good game. That was a really good game. I think FSU could be decent this season. I think they could still make the college football playoffs. That's what's crazy, but it's gonna take a lot from the Noles. But UF Christian, it's the battle. Cam Ward versus Graham Mertz. What's going on, Christian? What are you thinking?
Bro, it's Gator season. It is Gator hunting season. It is Gator hate week down here in the right parts of the town. Unfortunately, you know the saying, there's the good, which is the Canes, the bad, which is whatever the hell you're wearing, and then you got the ugly, which is them boys that lost all the way out in Ireland. So I was raised properly. You know who I rock with. All I'm going to say is it's Killer Gator season, and we eating Gator bites. It's Sunbelt Billy is going to lay down an egg. Graham Mertz, 4 interception game to his secondary that's honestly questionable. You are going to have Ben Hill Griff Stadium chanting for DJ Lagway by the end of the game.
UF hasn't lost a home opener in like 30 something years.
Okay.
I don't what
Unless DJ Lagway gets in that game and then they waste a year of his eligibility, he's not. They're not winning.
Listen, I think Cam Ward's very talented. I think Damian Martinez is very talented in the backfield, but it's the coaching, it's the execution, it's everything that goes into football that's I don't necessarily know, at least after last season. I mean, I'm not saying that's the culture of football. They've obviously had many winning seasons and before that championships. But it just seems like last year was a very disconnected season where the team it just didn't seem like Miami, like of what,
Yeah.
and so I don't know. I mean, the talent has been upgraded for sure, but why are people supposed to buy in that the culture side of it is different?
Well, here's the thing, and I'm gonna be honest. There's 3 words for why the Canes sucked last year. Tyler Van Dyke. That dude is ass. We really out here thought that Tyler Van Dyke was going to win a Heisman at some point during his career. Dubbed Tyler Van Turnover for all the right reasons. That dude was making the stupidest Stevie Wonder picks every game. I swear I have never seen a more incompetent quarterback. So, Wisconsin, y'all have fun with that. I can play quarterback better than Tyler Van Dyke. Full honesty. Cam Ward is going to light up the Gators. Cam Ward is winning the Heisman this year, gentlemen. Don't care what anybody says. Damian Martinez, 1,000-yard rusher, best running back in the ACC. I like him over the running back from UNC, Argyle Wall. Xavier Restrepo, breakout year. Xavier Restrepo is going to lead the country in targets this year. And I think Jacoby George is going to have a solid year. I think the Canes are going to get a little crazy. They're going to get JoJo Trader some action early. I really like that. Arroyo is one of the best tight ends in college football. I really like what he's going to bring to this offense because I say it all the time with high school, but it's even more true with colleges. Tight ends are a dime a dozen. Unless you're Iowa, you really probably don't have a good tight end. But I think
Michigan State wrestling is going to be nasty.
Or Michigan State. But I think Brandon Arroyo is one of the top-tier tight ends in college football. Then when we go defensively, also their offensive line is a freak show. Francis Mauigoa is going to – Francis Mauigoa is an elite offensive lineman, even as a true freshman last year. He's going to make an even bigger jump. He got taller. It might be because I'm short as hell, but that dude got taller. From the end of last year to when I saw him, that dude got taller. Then when we flip defensively, Ruben Bain is, in my opinion, the best edge rusher in the ACC. I like him over Patrick Payton just because Patrick Payton got absolutely neutralized in Dublin. And then over the middle, I really like Kiko Francisco Mauigoa. I think that Kiko is going to have a big year, and honestly, I could see Buck-Kiss Award for Mauigoa going at the end of this year. I'm really high on Miami. I'm saying all this only to get my heart broken at the end of the year. I know it's coming, but guess what? Canes to the natty, baby. Canes are winning the ACC for the first time in program history. They're winning the conference for the first time since they were in a basketball conference, and we're going all the way this year. I've got the Canes over anybody.
I don't know about that.
Graham Mertz is not beating the 7th-4 crew.
I'm not even a big Gators fan. I mean, I used to be back in the day. That's why I own this shirt. I've had this shirt since I was in high school. Now it finally fits me. It was really big back in the day. But anyway, I was a fan when the Gators were putting up points. Now it's just like it's been pretty. The same things I said about Cristobal can be easily said about Sunbelt Billy. The culture there is horrendous. Everything that goes on with NIL is atrocious. I'm surprised recruits still commit there. They just got Nashawn Montgomery the other day.
Shout out to Congratulations.
So it's like that. I'm assuming. I'm praying. I hope he doesn't get defrauded. I'm sure they've got that eradicated now. But it's still everything that goes into UF football over the last couple of years has been horrendous, and it's like I just don't know if they don't win this game. the season is already headed down a dark path. You could
For both teams.
probably put Sunbelt Billy on the hot seat if they lose this game.
So, first off, like you said, the loser of this game, you can pretty much chalk up the remainder of the season. Honestly, Florida, it only gets worse from there. Florida does have one of these unfortunate worst strength of schedules going into this year. Pretty much anybody good, Florida is playing them, whether it's the Canes, UCF, Florida State, any team in the SEC. Y'all literally got Bama, Georgia, Ole Miss, Mizzou, Texas, Tennessee. Like, yeah, y'all are going through a gauntlet. I'm not gonna lie. Sunbelt Billy was on the hot seat well before this game will be played, honestly, in my opinion, especially after all of the NIL stuff came out. I think that kind of dissuaded a lot of people. If they throw up a bad egg against the U, I think Sunbelt Billy's days are numbered, especially losing a couple or struggling in a couple close games or losses, because the quote-unquote easiest team on Florida's schedule is Samford. And if you remember 2 years ago, they struggled heavily with arguably a better offensive core, because I believe Richardson and Slick Rick, Ricky Pearsall, were still at UF back then. And they struggled against some team in Alabama that's not one of the good ones. Because, damn, even Auburn's better than them, which is saying something. Actually, I think Auburn's going to be good this year, but that's besides the point. But, yeah, I think Sunbelt Billy's days are numbered. I've been putting it on Twitter a lot recently. He'll be gone by week 5, and I think Graham Mertz will be benched for DJ Lagway at some point during the year. But, like you said, the future is bright for UF football. You've got Lagway, who I think if y'all can secure him and him not drop ship and hit the portal, I think Lagway is going to be a very good quarterback. Bringing in Vernell Brown and Nashawn Montgomery is huge. Spoiler, I am trying to work on getting Nay onto my show, New Era Prep Nightly, every Monday and Wednesday night. Make sure you tune into that show as well.
You're going to bring him on every Monday and Wednesday night.
No, he wishes, but yeah, I'm working on that. Nay, please text me back. But yeah, so I think Nay is easily the best player y'all have got in your recruiting class, because that dude is electric. I love watching Nay play. You throw up a jump ball 11 out of 10 times, Nashawn's coming down with it, and that's a fact. We've seen it with the pads on and in the 7-on-7 circuit. There's honestly no player electric like Nashawn.
No, I mean, he seems really talented, and that's the thing that UF is kind of missing, is a playmaker on the outside. I mean, they have Eugene Wilson, who's solid, I guess. Khalil Jackson
him coming into this year. I really like him coming into this year.
Yeah, I mean, they really don't have anyone else to throw it to. I mean, Andy Jean played a little bit in his last season, and now he's a redshirt freshman, and that's a name to kind of watch for. Same thing with Marcus Burke. But the names at the receiver position outside of Wilson are kind of like
who?
Exactly. So it's kind of like the offense. I like UF in this game just because it's the home opener. The defense is pretty solid, but the offense could lose them this game. It could.
And that's the thing, is I honestly hate your guys' offense. I think Graham Mertz is one of the most overhyped quarterbacks going into this year. If I had to give my top 3, it's Mertz, Byron Brown from USF, and Carson Beck. I do not think Beck is a good quarterback, but that's a conversation for another day. That dude is literally Jimmy G with national championship rings. But that's what you get at Georgia. You just get a bunch of system quarterbacks that can dump off a bunch of balls to their very talented, probably drunk driving receivers. But don't drunk.
Stetson Bennett, what did he have? Like 4 interceptions in the game the other day? 3? Something
yes,
like that?
and they somehow still won. So that's not even a testament to him being a good quarterback. That just shows that Dallas is already in midseason form. But yeah, like you said, I think UF's offense, especially because isn't like your entire running back room being duct taped together at
I
this
don't know. I don't rope me in with them. I haven't
I was
followed
about to
UF
say,
football. I haven't followed UF football heavily in in a couple of years. I
you're
follow it
not missing much.
sparingly. But I think Montreal Johnson is still the running back. I haven't heard to. I mean, he might. I'm not following it close enough to know if he's like injured. He's not out. He's not out for the season. I would have heard that, but I'm not following the practice reports. But Montreal Johnson should be the running back.
Yeah,
I don't know.
what I've heard over the past couple weeks, one, losing Etienne is huge, especially losing him to an SEC rival. With Georgia, I say rival very loosely. Um, but yeah, losing him to Georgia is big. And then, so you're already losing arguably one of the better backs in college football. And then, from what I've read, is I believe running backs now 1 and 2 are pretty heavily dinged up going into this game. So y'all are literally going to need Graham Mertz to win you this game, and I honestly don't think he can. I think he's going to be the one getting stadium pulse because end of the day, Cam Ward's been in this situation before. Um, I love Cam Ward, what he brought at Wazoo. I think that he is. I'm saying this biasedly, but I think Graham Mertz is or not Graham Mertz. I think Cam Ward is one of the top quarterbacks in college football going into this year. I'd give him top 5, honestly. I really like, um, I really like Cam Ward. I really like Nico coming in this year. Jackson Dart, Drew Aller from Penn State is going to be another guy that's really going to blow up this year. And then Avery Johnson from Kansas State, and then Quinn Ewers. Those are honestly my top handful guys in college football going into this year. But I think that Cam Ward is honestly going to light this up. I'm expecting a 100-yard rushing game from Damian Martinez and a 115 rush or receiving game from Xavier Restrepo. And one of the receivers will have 2 scores. I'm telling you that now.
I thought you were about to say Cam Ward was rushing for 100 yards. I was like,
No,
Christian,
but
let's not.
I can see a 35-yarder, 35 performance from him, which is solid. Yards are yards. It's 3 first downs. So I'll take that. But guess what, guys? There is a Cat 5 hurricane rolling into Gainesville, and they are not ready. They did. Those poor rednecks did not put up their hurricane shutters. They're going to get blown away.
We'll see what happens. We'll see what happens. I don't know. I kind of I want to let's pull up. Brought to you by Hard Rock Sportsbook.
Do we have a partnership with them before we start promoting?
Yeah, actually.
Okay. Yep. Brought to you by Hard Rock Sports Betting. I don't know if we do or we don't. But that's where I'm getting these stats from. So I'll shout them out anyway, and it's the only book we can bet on in Florida. Anywho, so I'm trying to find it. Where is it? I do a high school show, guys. I'm technically not allowed to promote gambling on my show.
Well, I can't. Oh, okay, there we go. I don't know. Well, FAU has now gone up from 13.5. So they're now FAU's now 13.5 points. So Florida is 2.5 point underdogs at home versus Miami. That's tough. Miami is 2.5 point favorites. The over 53.5. In that game, give me the over and give me Florida plus 2.5.
You throwing your money away, my boy. Just hit my cash app now.
You combine them together. Over plus 2.5. Parlay it. Put it in the bundle. It's not loading, so I can't tell you what that'll be.
Everybody.
Oh, it's a plus 220 parlay. So if you get that, it's a plus.
Just hit my cash app.
Plus 220 parlay. Florida, Miami. My other pick I like North Texas over South Alabama. North Texas is 5-point underdogs to South Alabama. I think North Texas is a better football program. They get Chandler Morris coming over from TCU. They bring back Ridge Tejada at DB, who that can lock up their best player on the outside. And I think Rice wins that game potentially by double digits. It's gone up to 5.5. 5.5 is insanity. Rice is 10.5 point favorites over Sam Houston State. I will take Sam Houston State in that one, plus 10.5.
Oh, we were supposed to be like promoting the conference.
Well, I mean, I'm not saying no. I think Rice will win, but I think Sam Houston State keeps it close. So I think they cover plus 10.5 in that one, and I think the under 49.5 hits. I don't think Rice or Sam Houston State are
So
going at it.
Robbie, before we really get dragged down this rabbit hole, because unfortunately, the little degenerate gamblers we are, we'll be talking about this for a minute. So I want to circle back to something. We might have a little bit of a hate week going, but we can all agree about one thing, my friend, and that is that Saturday afternoon was the greatest day ever. Watching Florida State fly out to Dublin and absolutely getting shamacked. DJ Ulongale out here like filling out his LinkedIn resume on the field. Let's talk about that game because that one made me so happy.
I think with it's tough because I thought FSU had a pretty good game plan other than the passing. The run defensively sound. Other than that, I don't think the pass game was working. I don't think the game plan to throw the ball not past the line of scrimmage was the way to go. I think they should have tested. I think they should have tested Georgia Tech's secondary a little bit more because the way they played into Georgia Tech's hands, they had the run game, and it was over after Georgia Tech established a run game. It was going to be hard for FSU to win that game. Credit to them for almost coming back, but that was a bad effort performance to have, especially after all the drama at the end of last year, to come out and get bullied in the run game. Not what you want to see.
And that's the thing, especially first off, maybe the college football playoff committee was right. Maybe Jordan Travis was the reason that this team was good. Like maybe Jordan Travis's health was the sole reason of why FSU was a contending team. But in all seriousness, if you looked at my preseason poll going into this year, Florida State was definitely not the number 10 team. I did not think that FSU was worthy of that. Going into this year, I honestly think that there are 3 ACC squads better than Florida State, and that's 4 actually. Miami, Louisville, North Carolina, and NC State, I think, are all more sound programs going into this year. And that's solely because I do not believe that DJ Ulongale is a good quarterback. I said that when he was at Clemson. I really said it wasn't when he was at Oregon State. And now that he's at Florida State, I really stand by that statement. Because like you said, bro did not throw past the line of scrimmage. Absolute
check. Was that his fault, though, or was that the game plan? Because if
not my problem, they lost.
But if that was the game plan, that's poor coaching on Mike Norvell's part. Let's say offensive coordinator's name.
Yeah, that's technically a coordinator's fault.
I forgot the offensive coordinator's name at the moment, but it'll come to me. But that's whose fault it is, not necessarily DJ's, because he executed the passes that he was told to run. If you think about it, he was accurate, but they weren't hard throws. So
and that's the thing is, like you said, they didn't get ballsy. They weren't really trying to air it out. They had one deep strike, which honestly should have been a catch. It's just the timing between the receiver and DJ was a little off. But end of the day, y'all lost to a bunch of engineers. Do I think Georgia Tech is going to be a very solid football team? Yes. Yes, I do. Does Miami deserve that get back after what the hell happened last year? Yes. Yes, they do. And please, can we kneel the ball? When the game's already in hand, can we please kneel the ball this time? Like, please, guys, come on. But in all seriousness, let's keep talking Canes. I like Miami at a solid 9-win season from the Canes. I think loss at Louisville will probably happen. The Florida State game is honestly a toss-up, and then they'll probably lose a trap game at some point. No, it will not be against Florida. Give me the Canes, ACC champions this year. Miami versus Louisville for the ACC championship.
Yeah, I'll take Virginia.
Don't give me that
Virginia Tech before I take. I'll take Virginia. I'll take Virginia over. Exactly. Who's on Virginia? Nobody. But I'll take them over Miami.
I'll allow the Virginia Tech just because they have a really solid quarterback. I like Drones. I think he's a very, very good quarterback. I like Boston College for the same reason. I think both of them have very solid quarterbacks. I'll also give a little shout out to my good friend Davi Belfort out at Virginia Tech. I think he's going to tear it up in the next year and a half. Yes, Davi Belfort, the same Belfort as Vitor Belfort, the UFC fighter. But
Fair enough.
yes, I think that VT is a program that has a big upside in the next couple of years. NC State's another one, big upside in the next couple of years. And there's somebody else I wanted to say. Give me Florida State in a couple of years when I think Luke Cromahook takes a starter job, when Florida State gets their Palm Beach kids really developed. I think Ricky Knight will be a great corner for them. Jaden Parrish will be a great linebacker. And Amari Williams will be the best defensive player in all of college football in the next year and a half. I'm expecting big things from those three, especially going into the next couple of years.
We shall see. Week 1 almost upon us, starts this Thursday. For our friends in the chat asking about FAU predictions, I got more FAU content for you guys coming tomorrow from the Owl's Nest Inside the Burrow podcast. Me and my co-host Drew Shula, who was too cool to join us tonight, we'll go over everything related to the game. Tonight was more just MSU side of things. Huge shout out to Stephen Brooks for coming on with us, and we will talk everything predictions and everything MSU versus FAU tomorrow on Inside the Burrow. Guys, thank you so much for tuning in to the Bleacher Brothers Sports Network, Lastella Report. I will see you guys back here next week. If you want to see me before then, you got to tune into Inside the Burrow on FAU Owl's Nest. For Christian Proscia, Stephen Brooks, I'm Robbie Lastella. We'll see you guys next week.